positions when it comes to earthquake in our coastal regions and even beyond. I'll start with maybe Prince Ofori.
I want to say a very good evening to you, our cherished listeners. Yes, with the preamble that you just brought forward, saying that Ghana is not seismically active.
Right.
One way is correct, another way is also wrong.
Great.
Based on how you would want to look at it.
Right.
Because when geologically, when you look at regions where you would have numerous earthquakes,
Right.
you would want to look at countries that are close to divergent zones and convergent zones. That is where the Earth's bodies actually meet or move apart. Ghana is somewhat a bit farther away from these lines.
Okay.
So when you take countries in the Caledonians, such as New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Indonesia, these are countries that find themselves in convergent boundaries where you have constant seismic activity. Also, in countries such as Turkey, these countries find themselves in these convergent boundaries, and the kind of earthquakes that they are going to experience is always rampant.
Okay.
It's closer, and then the magnitude of earthquakes that they receive is also very, very high, i.e. 7.0 and above. But then when you look at the history of earthquakes in Ghana, since we started monitoring somewhere in 1615,
Okay.
yes, we started monitoring somewhere in 1615 till now.
Wow.
Seismically, our magnitude in terms of earthquake that we have received in this country is basically around 6.0 to 6.6. That's the highest earthquake that we have seen. And that even occurred somewhere in Elmina, that is in 1615, Axim in 1636, Accra in 1882, or in 1906, as well as Accra again in 1939, where there were visual pictures and stuff that happened in Jamestown area, Gumwanyanyano, around the West Hill Malls area. That is where we felt those impacts. So that's not to say that earthquakes can never happen in this country.
Right.
And when there's always going to be earthquakes, there are numerous earth tremors that will begin to tell you that something big can happen.
Right.
In our lifetime, we have experienced many earth tremors.
Right.
I started becoming aware of it somewhere in 1997,
Right.
where I was just sleeping in my room, and then I think it was on Independence Day when the ground shook.
Right.
And till this day till now, from that day till now, we've actually seen a lot of earth tremors that has been recorded.
Right.
And currently, now that we even have the seismic station, we record it on a daily basis, at least around 2, 3, all the way to 4.4. That is the highest earthquake tremor that we've recorded since 1997. So that means that there's some level of movements that we have seen within our country. So therefore, earthquakes can happen.
Right.
Also, to add up, Ghana, although you are saying that it's part of the stable regions of the earth called cratons, for which most of the times we say that deformation or movement within the rocks can never be found. Fairly, it is true. But also, when you get to the southeastern portion of our country, we also have what we call the mobile belts.
Okay.
These mobile belts are belts that move. They move about 1 to 2 centimeters a year. So you and I can simply not see it with our eyes. But over time, it builds up pressure. For example, when you have a ruler, okay, this is a simple experiment everybody can do at home. When you have a ruler, the 30 centimeter ruler, you can hold 2 sides. When you press it down, you would see that the ruler itself will be building pressure. It gets to a time where your external stresses becomes more than the strength of the ruler. What would happen is that the ruler would simply break.
Right.
You would realize that when your ruler breaks, your 2 hands would automatically shake.
Yeah.
And that is what happens on our mobile belts that we have in this country. So it is those shaking that we see that causes this 6.0, 6.6 earthquakes that we have found in our country. And these kind of earthquake magnitudes are also magnitude that are quite devastating in terms of the earthquakes and what you can get. And that is why we are saying that although we are not in the main zone of seismicity, it doesn't mean we shouldn't also prepare ourselves should there be an earthquake, because there have been history and times which earthquakes have been recorded in this country. And these faults that we see in this country, one starts from the Kokobite Beach, that we call the Equipamian Fault. It starts from the Kokobite Beach, goes all the way through Bomanyanyano, Botiano, McCarthy Hill, Legon as we sit, all the way to the Ebri Mountains, straight to Ho. So it's almost about a 70 to 80 kilometer fault system. There's also another fault system which we call the Coastal Boundary Fault that we find around the Axim area, which comes into the southern portion of our country. So these faults, as we have seen, is actually close to the coast and they are active, and that is where our shaking is experienced in terms of sudden vibrations that you and I have experienced. So if somebody says that there's no earthquake in Ghana, I would want the person to know that yes, there's an earthquake and we ought to be prepared for it. Even if it is 5.0 and above, it can still kill, it can still cause chaos, and therefore these are issues that we need to talk about, and these are issues that we ought to take serious.
Thank you very much for this detailed explanation. Because we do not see active policy orientation towards earthquakes in this country. People tend to think that, oh well, how many earth tremors do we have? Can we compare ourselves to certain areas? So with that mindset, maybe policymakers are not looking at things the way they should. And so there's a need for us to raise that awareness of people to get to know that yes, you may not be, but the sort of signs that are coming out now can lead us, gradually, into a situation where we may be unprepared, and that would be very, very dangerous, as we even saw in Turkey recently. So I want to, when I come to Dr. Amponsah, sorry, no, it's not Dr. Amponsah now, it's Dr. Nunoo, right? With the point that he's made, what should be the policy position?
Okay, thanks so much.
Right.
Greetings to your cherished listeners, and thanks for hosting us. I just want to add a bit to what you just said.
Right, go ahead.
Ghana as a country has several regions, and these regions all have been demarcated in terms of its proximity to the fracture lines that he was talking about.
Right.
So regions like Greater Accra, Central Region, Western Region are the most prone zones where we have active seismic activity. As you move inland, it decreases. So just to say that some areas may be stable, but then it doesn't mean totally that the country is safe.
Right.
And then in terms of the
Greater Accra, Central, Western.
right,
Right.
and the Volta region.
Volta, he mentioned
So
Volta.
these are the major red zones when it comes to seismicity, because these regions are closer to all the fault lines that we spoke about, the Ramanj, the Papinian, and the coastal boundaries. So when it comes to policy, I think as a country, let me say quickly that the 1939 earthquake, it was the same time that Turkey also had it, and it was also devastated.
Wow.
So the recent earthquake that Turkey experienced, are we also closer to something else?
Is it a precursor?
Yeah, we may never. But then around that time we were still experiencing some earth tremors. So we also need to kind of be prepared. But I think let me say that with the Copernic challenge program, there's an initiative to sensitize most of our people, especially from high school through the university. We are trying to let them know how to prepare in terms of an earthquake.
Right.
So this is something that the nation needs to embrace it.
Right.
Our building codes, we have to be very strict on it. And I think people need to get certification before they are able to put up certain development. So these things are not properly.
What is your assessment currently?
Okay, for now, if I should grade it,
Yes.
I would say 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10. There may be some policies.
Right.
As Geological Survey is trying to push something forward that people have to get policies here and there. But then we've not done much. Copanic is trying to push Ghana in addition with NADMO, GGS. They are trying to come up with a program that we will see that it will be countrywide. As I'm talking, we have only 10 earthquake sensors. We call them earthquake guards.
Okay.
Only 10. So if you look at even Greater Accra, in totality, 10 is not enough. And these sensors are supposed to give us an early warning sign so that we can free. It's just 15 seconds. When there's an earthquake, there are 2 waves that comes. There's a primary wave, then there's a secondary wave, which is surface or surfacial wave. So between the P wave and the S wave, you have 15 seconds to make a decision.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not something like, oh, let me run quickly to the washroom or to the bank or to fetch some things. Within 15 seconds, you have to make a decision. Yeah, so I think most people don't even know this. So my assessment for the nation, I think I can't say much, but then
Right.
we have a long
So
way to go.
if there is
Can
an
I-
earthquake today, God forbid, will be caught hands down.
Most definitely.
Most definitely.
Most definitely. But let me add a bit to what he said in terms of government policy.
Yeah.
We all read the news somewhere in the February 28, 2023. The Minister of Lands and Natural Resources came out to talk about an earthquake task force that government has brought together, and he thinks that the earthquake task force is adequate enough and well prepared enough for any eventualities when it comes to earthquakes. Where the task force is currently being led by the Ministry of Interior. The Minister of Interior is actually the head of that task force, which also include GGSA, that's the Ghana Geological Survey Authority. It also includes NADMO. It includes, I think, state housing, as well as I think it's state housing. So these are the people that we've entrusted our earthquake preparedness to.
Is academia represented?
Yes, we have the universities, but the universities are more so for now, I don't really know the exact rules, but I know that the universities are supposed to be involved in that task force to help in the education when it comes to earthquake. But I think meetings are being held. Hopefully soon it will trickle down on us, and then we can kickstart that education that we ought to do. Secondly, also in terms of the Millennium Development Authority, that's the Ghana Power Compact Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan, there's something in there, I think in their 2016 report.
Okay.
It's only just a bit. I think it's 2 paragraphs that only talks about earthquakes and earthquake preparedness. So you could see that thing is a general preparedness when it comes to disasters. And to me, I think that is where we fall short a bit. Because if you are creating a general plan of disasters, you have to move a bit further to take the disasters one by one and see the occurrence of each and every disaster and how you could mitigate that disaster and what education you must give to the people so that they are fully aware of these disasters that we have. So in terms of policy, when it comes to earthquake, that is what I know. And then currently, we have the Ghana Geological Survey Seismic
Seismological
Center that is close to the Gimpa School, which has been recording whatever ground movements that we have, for which GGSA, now I think they are doing very well in announcing to the nation exactly when there's any air tremor that we experience.
Earlier on, Dr. Nunoo talked about our buildings, our infrastructure. I don't know whether, as we continue to build almost everywhere, anywhere, whatever policy we have, whatever systems that we have, really talks to the building code.
Okay, thanks for this submission. If you go to Kokrobite, if you look at the rocks very well, they have a lot of fractures. The faults, the breakages that we are talking about is very pronounced over there. But it will shock you that there's huge rising buildings sitting on this fault system. I happen to have spoken to the contractors, but then they were completely lost in terms of what to do. So in advanced countries like Japan, where there's rampant earthquake, they have some methodology in the engineering approach. You can't just put the building there. It has some level of elasticity. So when there's an earthquake, there's some level of springing of the building before it comes down. But in our case, there's no form of engineering protocols. Then it may be there, but are we putting that to work? Are our engineers aware, those that are putting up the structures? So that is what it is. We still need to.
If I would add a bit to it in terms of whether our structures are fit for purpose, I think you and I can attest the fact that here in Ghana, when I buy my one plot of land, the only person I need is the architect to design a building for me, and I just go on the ground, look for some masons, and then just put the structure on ground.
But you have done well for looking for an architect.
Yes.
This is true.
In fact, but naturally,
the masons are the architects.
Yes, naturally that shouldn't be. If the engineers and the MMDs were doing their job right and enforce that we all follow the building codes and building standards, because whenever you are going to build, that is where you need to send your documentation to, and they must actually correct your documentation and say yes, you can move forward, pay for whatever you need to pay, and go and continue your building. Site investigation report, which is important. If we all have site investigation report, one, it will tell you the type of rocks you have on the ground. Two, you will do seismicity on the ground to check the amount of movement that you can have. And with all of and the type of soils that you have on ground. If you have all of these things as a report, the engineer or the geological engineer will now tell you the kind of foundation you should be able to use so that it can withstand, and it will tell you the number of iron rods, what the structural engineering will be. If we had done all of this, and if the engineers and the MMDAs also ensured that this was done, we wouldn't have had this problem. Which means, because the building code is there, but who is enforcing it? And that's where the gap comes in. And like you said, people even go and build without even going to the district assembly at all. They just put their building, look for a meeting, and that is what it is. So that is why we have this issue.
Okay, so in addition to what my senior colleague just said, especially on the soils, we have various kinds of soils. Some of them are very expansive. So anytime, if you look at a number of buildings, you find a lot of cracks. There's differential settlement. So there are a number of soils that we need to treat them to make sure that there is some level of stability before we can use them even in the building protocol. Or if you find out that where you want to build, the type of soil there, especially we have this soil around Shire Hills, it's called black cotton clay. They are very expansive. They can take in a lot of water, swell, and when you are in the dry season, they give out the water. So they cause a lot of cracks. So if you have these soils, either you excavate them and now you look for very stable soil, or you treat them. There's a way to treat them scientifically. Especially you can do a lot of lime solution.
Right. Good. I want to ask you because of time. You mentioned Botiano, and indeed, I think Joy TV, for instance, there was a particular documentary that they prepared, and Botiano featured, heavily on it, to the extent that there is a particular house that is seated, at a point where erosion has virtually created, I don't want to call it a gully, frankly speaking, it is virtually, and they are using ladder, to climb up. Now, if you look at if you are moving towards the central region, you look at your left, there is this hill. I remember 20 years ago, that hill was green. Today, it is not, because people have built around it. And then, so you can see that anytime it rains, there is this erosion, it is eroding gradually. If you come to Ebiri, I was going to go further the other day, you find this, the stones, I think they are sedimentary rocks, but exactly, actually falling. And there are buildings there, and people are still building. And you ask yourself, what is this? Can you tell us exactly what is actually happening in these areas?
Okay, thank you. When you look at places such as the Ebri Mountains, Makati Hills,
right?
Okay, when you look at the rock system that we have there, you would realize, and even if you've looked at it, you see that there are certain rocks that you can remove.
Yes, like you can peel.
You can peel it off. Right. These are rocks that you can peel that people are using as building designs. Sometimes they will do it in terms of square and stuff like that. These are rocks that come in that formation. These rocks are easily peelable. And in geological terms, we say these rocks are rocks that are foliated.
Foliated, okay.
And rocks that are foliated, on the plane of foliation is always plane of weakness.
Okay.
Naturally, these rocks shouldn't be a problem because you have vegetation and soil that usually hold these rocks in place.
Right.
The rocks, by the way they are formed, are naturally weak rocks. They easily move because you would realize that these foliations or foliations that we see are not horizontal, but they are always at an angle.
Right, that's true.
If you simply drive along the Aimesa Peduasi road, you will see that I don't need to tell you, they are all at an angle.
Right.
They simply can move on that angle.
Right. And indeed they are moving.
They are moving.
Right.
It is because when the road was done, we created all these rock face that we can see. Naturally, we should have moved forward with engineering to bolt the rock in, to hold them in place.
Right.
Other than that, mass wasting or mass movement would occur. Right. Number two, the vegetation that is keeping these rocks together so that we will not have this problem. We, in our own intelligence, have decided that we want to build our houses by the hills.
Right.
And the only thing we would want to do is to get all the vegetation off, which hitherto was holding these rocks. Once you have moved all this vegetation, the rocks themselves, which are actually weak, you've even given them enough time to now simply daylight out of where they are. And when I say daylight, move. Number two, these are areas that it rains heavily.
That's true.
Anytime it rains, these foliage that you have in the rock can soak water. Once it soaks water, it makes the rock heavy. And once the rock is heavy, it is easy for it to move under its weight. And that is why we are saying the buildings that people are putting up there, we need to be careful. And if we really want to do those buildings there, building codes must seriously be enforced. MMDAs must ensure that GGSA, our department, geological works are done very, very well. The Ghana Institute of Engineers must also come up with what the standards are to ensure that once you are doing all those things there, we will not force these things to come. And the vegetation that we are also taking out, we should be careful. And if we continue at this rate, we should all prepare ourselves for massive landslides and massive rock falls. Yes.
Wow. And you see, it's sad because the caliber of people who have built there are not you and I. No, they are people of stature. And as for that top, I can mention a good number. But I'll hold on with that. They are people of stature who should know better. They are there, and they started it. And now everybody is joining. You can move beyond a degree, you still see it. Dodowa, you see it with that quarry. It's as if nobody cares in this country.
Yeah, so technically, they are compounding a lot of pressure on the rock.
Okay.
Already the rock is inclined, it's at an angle. So every bit of pressure that you exert on the rock vertically, you are forcing the rocks to move. That's what he said, daylight. So that is what is happening at the top. So initially it wasn't so drastic. And now, I think there should be a way to even look at satellite images to go back in time and see how the whole topography and how the whole land architecture looks like, and then come through time now, and you will see there's a lot of changes, there's a lot of development. But as he said, we are sitting on a time bomb. But those rocks have what we call graphite, and they act like grease, so it's easy to rub. So there are a number of things that are happening there, which makes it very dangerous, and we have to act quickly to see how we can.
Some time back, years back, if you are driving and you get to that area, the fog in the morning, now it's not as it used to, and that tells you that something is changing. Okay, now how can individuals and communities in Ghana prepare for earthquake and mitigate their potential risk?
So for earthquake preparedness, there should be some level of education. So as I said, Copernic, together with the University of Ghana, together with GGSA and NADMO, we initiated a program where we explained to the locals what earthquake is all about, and what to do when there's an earthquake. People shouldn't run. There can be some form of stampede. You have to stay calm. We have a term that we say that drop, cover, and hold. So the drop, you have to basically within few seconds locate an ideal place where you have to fall, and the most important part of the body is to cover the head. So you have to use your hand. You can use your hand to cover. If there's a furniture, you have to try go under it in a way that if there are items that are dropping, and you get yourself protected. So we just have to do a lot of community sensitization. But then there should be some form of scholarship to do this. And then let me add that the EQ guide that we developed has been translated into a number of languages. I think it's in Kan, it's in Ga, and I think it's in Ebe language apart from the English version. So this gives an alarm and it speaks because it's able to pick the wave so that people can quickly move. So we just have to make sure we get a number of them at vantage points so that it can synchronize at the same time, make loud noise so that people can take safeness when there's an earthquake or when there's anything.
Sometime back, yes, come in.
In terms of earthquake preparedness, you would remember that Dr. Nunoo said that usually the propagation time and then the time which the earthquake will occur is only 15 seconds. So usually you do not have much time. But then there are a few things one can do to protect themselves. When the earthquake is occurring, do not rush to run away from your rooms. Because what is happening is that as you run away, things outside are shaking. Electric poles and stuff like that can also fall on you. So you expose yourself to immediate danger. So what we say is that anytime there's an earthquake, look around in your house, tables, anything that is strong, just quickly run under them and be in brace position. Even when your building breaks, at least you would survive there until rescuers come. So we always advise people, have strong tables in your house, have things that you can quickly move underneath. Number 2, ensure that you do not be close to windows, because currently the windows that we have and the designs of windows that we have, they are all glass.
Serious.
So should there be any shaking, the glass will simply shatter and it will cut you. So I will always say, do not run towards your windows, because it would also cause a lot of problems.
What if you're in the workplace and the whole building is glass?
That one, then you know you're in trouble.
So we also kind of seek to do some level of sensitization.
Sure.
So for those who build glass story buildings in Accra, do they normally seek advice?
In fact, when it comes to tall buildings,
Yes.
and any building, I think most of them follow building codes and would actually have to go through site investigations. That I am fully aware.
Right.
The problem is coming to our domestic homes
Right.
that we live in. Now, that is where we do not follow anything and do anything. Because with all these tall buildings, it's easy for the MMDAs to see you and come back and come and ask you for all these things.
Right.
So usually they follow them. And the government buildings also, government ensures that the site investigation is done before they put up the building. But as to the glass issue, that one.
Okay, so
Our sliding doors and sliding windows.
I just want to add a little.
Yes.
The sliding
Doors. What is happening is there is some research we did with Ghana Atomic Energy. So depending on the type of rock that you even use for the building, you can have a lot of concentrate of radon gas, which is also cancerous. So there's also that aspect of pollution that is happening in terms of the material we use and its reaction with all these glasses that are sliding doors that we use. But a lot of people are also not aware. Now you see people are using all kinds of rocks.
Please, can you
in
go over this again?
their designs.
Right.
So rocks are basically the home of radiations, and they contain a lot of elements that some can be cancerous. So now we are using all manner of rocks in Accra because of artistic properties, but some of them do contain high levels of radon gas, and especially if you have all this encroachment whereby nothing escapes in this sliding doors, there's some level of reaction between the radiation from the rocks and this glass, and it can produce a lot of cancer. Yeah. So
What is the alternative?
Basically, building materials, there should be a way of selecting them geologically.
Okay.
Yeah. So imagine that people use gold-bearing rocks to build their houses. Okay, and others also use uranium-bearing rocks to build their houses.
We don't know these rocks.
Yes, so people don't know. So all of these, there is a way to do it. The material engineer has to collaborate on the choice of material for the building or for the project. So any building that one is doing, one has to be very careful about the materials that they are going to use to build for you. You may pay a lot to kill
also
yourself.
add that usually after every earthquake, there are aftershocks. Aftershocks always okay, and that also brings a lot of dangers to us. In fact, what is going to happen is that usually after an earthquake, most of the times your light will be out because it will have it will shake the power lines and stuff like that. People are quick to use candles. But then remember that we all have gas cylinders in our house, and that can trigger fire first class. So we have to be very careful. And if you smoke, please do not smoke after an earthquake. I beg you, because you put everybody at risk. Yeah, so it's the aftershocks that we also need to take care of. So these are quick things that people can do in terms of earthquake preparedness. And I think this is a good education for them, so that when the earthquake occurs, at least that split-second decision would allow you to find a safe place, either in your house or outside, for you to be free.
a quick one.
Yeah, right.
So
let's assume that there's an earthquake in the University of Ghana. How are we going to account for the number of people that are on campus?
Before you answer, let me give you an example. When there was this gas explosion
Yes.
at Atomic Junction, I think it was a day of judgment.
Yes.
You know, the fire was actually burning and moving in the air,
Yes.
and people around Atomic, some were running to University of Ghana. And then students who were around Penn were also running towards this place. I was wondering where everybody was going to. Then in Medina, others were also running towards Ebili. Everybody was running away from the danger. Now there is no open space for people to gather. No open space. You can go ahead. I just wanted to make this particular point. No open space. And even afterwards in Medina, where I knew there were some open spaces, with all apologies, politicians went and ensured that they build on those open spaces.
Yeah, so I asked this question because after earthquake, we have to check, we have to count for people, look for them. So that means you have to have an idea of the total number of people within a particular domain. So you can look for each and everyone and count for them. It's like the mines. People go into underground, and there's a good record of how many people are there, so that if we are kind of trying to get them, then we know how many people have been retrieved and how many people are still stuck there.
Right.
So we have to have a very good idea of the number of people that we engage within our jurisdiction, and also the way we build as organizations. Are we ensuring that in terms of any emergency, people are going to find their way out? Are there not going to be any form of stampede? Yeah, so this.
I think I'm not going to go far. I'm going to use University of Ghana now. The traditional halls.
Yes.
The Legon Journal has a certain roofing style.
Yeah.
Where they use the on top.
Yes.
It is
The brown clay.
the brown clay. You can remove the brown clay, and you are okay. Unfortunately, thieves have realized that that is how it is. So at times they come remove it and get into your bungalows, right? But at least it's open, and then you can add.
Yes.
Now, we also have this lighting arrestor within the traditional halls. If you look at the annexes, Labor Annex A, Annex B, are all the annexes. I don't know whether the exit you are talking about, what we have, is actually sufficient.
No. In fact, it's not sufficient. I think that it would just be an 18-feet door.
Wow.
Because when this is like a 5-floor building, and everybody has only a single exit to come out, and that single exit only has an 18-foot door. Should there be an emergency, I can tell you there will be a stampede.
You're right.
There will be a stampede. It's because probably we do not have rooms. That's why people will go in for that room. But clearly, from where I sit, from a safety standpoint of view,
Right.
if I am looking for a building here and they're going to stay,
Right.
the best place I would want to go is the traditional hostels.
Right.
Because the traditional hostel has exits in various places,
Right.
about 2, 3, 4 exits. So should there be an emergency, there's somewhere to run to. There's also an open space for you to run to. Although those open spaces are available in our traditional halls, the doors that you have to come out from is my problem. It's a single door which everybody has to use.
So that must be looked at.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Right.
to add up, in the sensitization, we normally do some form of simulation. So we can come to Radio University and do simulation, so that we will create a pseudo earthquake, sound some alarm, and see how people are going to respond to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've done that a couple of times at our department for our students, but I think we have to make sure we do it for the halls and other organizations as well.
It's
They're more
very
on the-
important, at least for our campus. It is very important to do all these simulations because I really do not know how people are going to respond when it comes to emergency because students are not taught. All they do is we are looking for rooms, they give us the room, we are happy and we go and learn. But as to what the safety features are, what we need to adhere to, is not there.
Sometime back in Accra, and specifically Accra Central, there was at noon, you have these sound, that goes very far. And I used to think that this particular sound could be used at any time there's very serious emergency. I do not think it is working now. For a very long time, it's not been working. In Japan, as you mentioned, and in some other countries, for instance, where we had the tsunamis, they have these, PA systems all over for emergency purposes. Do you think we need to begin to London? They have the big, big thing, and it does help.
Yes.
Do you think that we need to begin to think of something like that?
It's not that we need to begin. It is something you need, and all indigents of a town, say Greater Accra, must be fully aware that anytime these things goes off, there's a serious issues, and everybody must take cover. These systems we do not have, and it's going to be hard. Like you said, in Accra there's no space, there's even no greenery. When you go to Accra Central right now, you don't even have a place to sit. Talk less of thinking about you having an alarm. Is the last thing we want to think about. Our preparedness for emergency is not there at all as a country, and these are things that we need to look at. So if you say we should think, no, it ought to be. And citizenry must be taught that once you hear this alarm, there is a problem, or the alarm would have different sound. This sound means this, that sound means this. Take cover, do this. It's time for simulation. We do not simulate. In Japan, they can simply sound alarm anywhere. They can simulate, and everybody will do what they have to do to save themselves. But we have nothing like that.
Well, listeners, sure you are aware, but if you are not, we are on Radio Univers and on the frequency 105.7 FM, operating from the campus of the University of Ghana. We've been talking to Dr. Prince Amponsah, a senior lecturer, Department of Earth Science of the University of Ghana, and then Dr. Samuel Nunoo, a geologist, also from the Department of Earth Science of the University of Ghana. My next question then would be, are there any ongoing research or initiatives in Ghana aimed at further understanding and studying seismic activity in these regions that we talked about?
Fairly far, I know Amponsah and then Grace, together with the GGSA, have taken up this task and doing some level of research. But earthquake research do not take only these institutions for it to be done. I mean, it goes far and beyond. And with these things, since you would need government support to help these research being done. And I'm sure that half of the time, all these research that they do are research that they even go and look for money from outside to come in. And money that you get from outside to come in is not money that is enough to fairly dig into what the issues are and how you can simply solve them. Yes, it will give you an idea of what is happening, but these are constant things that you ought to do over the years for us to understand. So fairly, I know that now the seismic station for GGSA has been refurbished. They have new equipment for which they can actually do a bit more better monitoring than it used to be before. And then our colleague, Dr. Amponsah and then Grace Norte, as well as Dr. Ama, have also taken this thing seriously, and they are doing a bit more research into it, but not with government support, but from donor agency and funders who are willing to pay for these things.
It's as if when it comes to research, the government is not the best place to look at.
In fact, the unfortunate thing is that when you look at our budget, ask yourself what percentage goes into education and research. It's less than 2 or 3%. But in advanced country, it's between 15 and 20%. They can do a bit more research. The government is always giving the university a lot of resources. I would not say only money, but a lot of resources to ensure that they are always coming up with something new. I think the good thing that they've even done in China is that when government gives you money, they expect you to come out with something that you're competent and it works. With that, it forces you, the researcher, to always be innovative, to be genius, to come up with things that will save the country. And that is, we don't even have some coming in, talk less of wanting to patent something. And if you put in just 2% of your money into education, then you shouldn't expect things in leaps and bounds. We will be where we are.
It's interesting because just this afternoon I went with some people to the Pro Vice Chancellor Research at Orid, and we're talking about so many things, and it came out that in terms of research, University of Ghana has research that is being sponsored, from outside based upon proposals that lecturers of this university, have actually competed for and have won. And so the university is able to run these researches basically for outside, outsiders. But of course, they find a way by which Ghana could also benefit from it. And they have not less than $12 million. But that is from outside. So you then realize that then the outsiders actually know us more than we know ourselves.
Yes.
Very well.
Very well. They know
us more than we know ourselves.
Yes.
And our universities are supposed to be there to benefit for our own benefit. But they are sponsoring the research activities that our intellectuals
don't even talk much in terms of resources that we have in our country, which we boast about: gold, manganese, bauxite, this, that. Ask yourself, which one has government ever invested in, done the research, done the exploration, to even know how much we have in terms of the resource that we have in the ground? We do not know. Government has no idea. It is people who come from outside, pay for their exploration, and they will now tell you what they think you have on the ground. So whatever they are quantifying, whether it is true, whether it is not true, whether you've been shortchanged, how are you going to know? Who is policing who? But in outside countries, governments, geological surveys are doing research 24 hours. They are not sleeping. They are flying geophysics. They are flying everything. So before you even come in as an investor saying that you want to do this, government already know 50 to 60% what you think you are going to find. So when you start bringing them numbers, they are fully aware. Whether your numbers are down or you are overestimating. But we do not know. So if somebody says we have cocoa, bauxite, blah, 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 the question is, how do you know? Minerals Commission would only know what we have based on what they pull from the ground. The Finance Ministry would only know what we have based on what these companies have reported, not what we know as a country.
Frankly speaking, at times it is sad when you hear people virtually undermine universities and the work that universities do. It seems not appreciated. People easily say, even politicians say, we are hearing them these days, they haven't been to school, but they can govern us. For God's sake, what do we think the universities are there for? People don't know the knowledge that leaves this country out of this country, and so they will make such flippant statements.
In fact, it's sad when you look at abroad. I would not say our education system is any different in terms of the percentage of people who go to the university, senior high school, as well as junior high school. When you look at the numbers of the people who progress from junior high school to senior high school to university, it's fairly the same around the world. But the simple question is, those in the outside country, allow the few who can think for them to think for them.
Think for them. Thank you.
That is where the difference lies. You would not see them making blanket statement by saying that you cry and university, you cry in but you are It is like when you look at all these people that have come up with businesses, they will say that, maybe Bill Gates didn't go to school, he was a school dropout and he's been able to do this. But what they forget is that when you take the tech space, the dropouts that have made it is only 4%. Those with PhDs are 26%, 27%. Those with masters and undergrads are about 6% of that space. So if you just look at that 4% and then you start saying that then you are in trouble.
But even that, at a point, I mean, they partner universities
a lot.
And,
in fact, a friend of mine is in Australia currently. He's at the Coates Institute in Tasmania. Every research that goes on in the Coates Institute is actually research that is funded by government and companies that are even running here in Africa. And all monies are sent to the university there to actually help them to develop stuff. So their university is mainly industry university related. Sometimes in our department, when we are looking for things and we go to our simple industries here, when most of the times I see them standing on radio and saying that even the universities don't come, it's a lie. We go all the time and it is very frustrating to deal with them. If, say, I'm looking for something in company A, I'm better off writing a letter to their head office in the US than writing a letter to their office here in Accra or wherever their office may be. Because when I send that thing to the US, they deem it as very important and very vital, and it's a good research that is going to help their company. And therefore, they simply give a caveat, can you go ahead? And that's why we've been able to have that $12 million that we've been able to push for. But that same thing, if you send it here in Ghana, it is a very frustrating event. You will be frustrated till you be like, no, look, these people don't need you. You are not important. You can't do anything for them. In fact, the question they would ask you, are you going to reinvent the wheel? You see, and that is the problem that we have. We as a nation, we are not interested in research. We are not interested to know. All we only know is a disaster will come, and then we'll go and do record mass for the people, do candlelight procession, and then the matter is dead.
Well, listeners, once again, the station is Radio Univers, and I can assure you, from now on, we are going to actually put in front of you the manpower that the university has, so be ready for it. Let me ask this question. Earlier on, you talked about the time for planning or to do anything when an earthquake strikes. You have only 15 seconds. Are there signs or precursors that at least one can, look out for? When this turkey thing happened, whilst I was reading around, somebody went even as far as looking at the reaction of animals.
Yes.
Pick it up from there.
Thanks for the question.
So, yes, so there are a number of waves that comes. As I said, P wave comes, then there is S wave. So animals are able to pick most of these signs quicker than we are able to pick. Then when ground shakes, sometimes building will just be shaking. Let me say this. I was in South Africa and there was earthquake in Namibia. So I was upstairs. Suddenly I realized that my table was shaking. So I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Then in a split of another 2 seconds, then the bed also shoot. So I have to descend. So within 5 seconds, when I go to the open space, all the Southern African guys were already in the open space.
Wow.
So they have been
Conscientized
about all of these things. So it took some
from Namibia.
Yes.
Wow.
So you have buildings will be shaking, animals will be screaming here and there. So we have to pay attention to noise. But the EQ guide that I was saying, it will pick the P wave and sound an alarm and will begin to talk, conscientizing everyone that there is an earthquake, so you have to flee.
Right.
So that kind of alarm system that it issues before the surface wave, which is the destructive wave, comes, is between those two waves is the 15 seconds.
Okay.
So the EQ guide will sound or will tell us that something is coming. So within 15 seconds, we have to find our way or hide somewhere. So that is.
And again, before any major earthquake, there are what we call foreshocks.
Okay.
Foreshocks are like earth tremors. Today, there will be one earth tremor. Tomorrow, there will be another earth tremor. Next year, there will be another earth tremor. And that's how it builds up. It will be building up and building up and building up. It is giving you time enough to either conscientize yourself, educate your people that this thing is real. Something can happen. So with all these triggers and foreshocks that you have, you should be aware that this is what is going to happen. As we sit down in Ghana, any day there can be a big earthquake. Because with all the foreshocks that we have seen till this day, if we wake up tomorrow and we have a 6.0 earthquake or a 7.0 earthquake, I am not surprised. Because the alarm has been sounded many times to us, but we haven't listened as a people. So if we are seeing all of this, we should be able to start educating people. And I think the radio is one powerful tool.
Right.
Having people who have knowledge in these things,
Right.
educating the people all the time what earthquake preparedness is like, what disaster preparedness is like. And I think each and every radio station should at least give 5 or 10 minutes for people to simply come and sit down and let the whole nation know that look, there's something that we can do should there be a disaster.
Great. Father, before I open the phone lines, but then I'll just open the phone lines to receive some calls on this earthquake. Then we'll come back and then also look at some stories in the newspapers, and at that point you can excuse us. Are there any recent advancements in technology or techniques that have improved our ability to understand and predict earthquakes?
Okay, thanks for the question. Okay, so there are some level of improvement. So one of them is the EQ guide that I spoke about.
Right.
So it's designed by Copernic.
So as we are talking, I want to open the phone lines. You can, if you have any question to ask on earthquakes in Ghana, please you can reach us on 0244 046393, 0244 6393, or you have a comment, to make.
So
Yes, go ahead.
as I was saying, there is some level of development. So Copernic has come up with some instrumentation,
Right.
which
This is, I think the line is Brazil, so let me pick this call.
Sure.
Hello. Good evening, sir.
By your expert there. But I wish they can liaise with civic education so that some of these things shouldn't be kept only at the university level. Then they will such as teach the people what to do in case things like that happen. Because you see, we are not. We don't have any knowledge about these earthquakes.
Right.
So, if anything happens, we'll be very vulnerable. I mean, we have no idea. Hiding under tables and chairs, and then people would attempt to run. Like what you said about this stomach gas explosion.
Right.
A neighbor of mine ran to my house before he got told that he had no shoes on. To my car, and we were driving out. We don't know where we were. It's a situation like that. And also, engineers testing and building material before we.
Right.
The local government, the building inspector, they don't even come to inspect your site before you issue the permit. See, they issue the permit without coming to your site, whether you are building in front of the Jubilee House, you are building in front of the castle, or you are building in front of, in the middle of the road.
They just grease their bumps. Okay. Thank you very much. We have so many calls actually. Thank you. Hello. Oh, we missed that so well. I'm sure to come back in German.
The other way around.
Yeah, we'll come to you. We'll give the opportunity to talk. So you hold it. Let's pick this girl. Hello. Good evening. Okay, my yes.
In the study,
Yes.
McCarthy here, nobody will buy a land. I don't know whether they will be able to do something at that place. Now that the land is more expensive than anywhere that I know. That time I bought a land. It was 25 years. Today, when I go there, people are built, and there's no way you can even do something. I want to know from them. Have you been able to tell people that that place is safe now? I don't know. Because when I go there, what I see, I'm not happy with it. So I'm just want to know if you've been able to educate our people about the new development. Please, I think the people are not getting the facts well. So please do something. When I see people building there, I say, hey, these people. Thank you very much and good morning.
Dr. Nunoo and friends, do something.
Oh no, like the first caller said,
Yes.
we have to liaise with civic education because it's become critical that there's a way the citizenry need to know exactly where they are and how safe where they are. Like Dr. Nunoo said, the hazard zones have been earmarked. We know where the high risk zones are, where the low risk zones are, and where the medium risk zones are. And therefore, we can earmark our education in such a way that those are in high risk zones, what they can do. But I think civic education, together with the university, can help us.
Even if some sort of form of pamphlets could be done and distributed in these areas.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello,
Yes, sir. Okay, go ahead.
I'm about a question about how we can still allow some of our land like cracking. I'm really shocked. I don't know because of the earthquake. Because the front of my shop, around 30 years, just 30 years.
Yeah.
Now there's a crack in it. The outside is the control, and why is the crack? But you want to say that because of the sun in the land, I'm really sure.
Okay.
We don't know much about it. They have just said that because if the land cracks, it's because of the earthquake. And stuff. And sometimes the sun is not proper, that's why it starts cracking and stuff like that. We don't know. So, what should we do? If we have already had that issue, you go and call them because already built already and start really cracking. What should you do? Should you go to some place to tell them to come and check it for you, or remove everything and right side and do something again? What should you do?
Okay. Otibati, thank you very much. We'll pick about 3 calls and then we'll get them to answer the question. So this question has to do with cracks. Right. So let's pick another call. Well, you can reach us on 0244046393. Sorry, we lost that call that was on. Hello. Yeah, good evening. Can you speak up, sir?
My name is Faculties.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, what my friends are saying there, I think it is the right thing. But in reality, I think country and town planning should be aware of those things so that all those private developers should be first be told that whatever building you are putting on, at least certain measures should be considered, especially where they should use iron rod more. Do you understand?
Okay.
Iron rod and the type of blocks they should use.
Okay.
But here we are in a country where you go to tell them you are building a house, they should come and see it. The amount of money they call to you, it's like you better not go. So all these things, I think this time around, when civilization is broad all over, those who are in offices in charge of civil engineering, our architects in the country, especially those in legislative assemblies and town and country planning, it is their duty to go round with civil whatever, to just to announce to them whatever building you are putting on. These are the least specification of what you can do to prevent it. You cannot build a house without iron rod. You cannot build a house with only blocks without iron rods. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So buildings and iron rods is the next, and then we'll pick another. I think that will be the third question, and then we come in house. Right. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, hello, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Maybe girl. Yeah.
Okay.
My regards to you.
Thank you.
And building or land surveying to build. We should have another strong department in our how do we call it in our setup, that is the district assemblies and all that. That should make sure that before you erect anything on the land that has been sold to you, you have to get a required good engineer to have given you the map. These things, what is being discussed now, it has happened all over, and it's happening. Here where I am residing now, there are structures that you see that it has just been erected, nothing, and it's a danger to our development, because one will tell you, and then the person will relate. Quite recently, it started for me to state it, but it happened. There's a school in front of my house where I'm residing. And what happened was that when they were renting the things and then doing the thing, they rushed. I spoke about it. But at the end of the day, what happened? What happened was that, yes, one Wednesday, this thing site collapsed and then killed a child. You see, this thing has been happening, and most cases is not attention for the state engineers and then to because yes, when they come, even when you send some of these officers to go to inspection to where these things, buildings and all the to see that things are done properly, they go in there and collect money into their pockets.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much. So we will come in house. There are some calls, but let's come in house and address the very first issue of cracks.
Yes, I think what is happening is that he has soils or clays, which Dr. Nunoo said
Right.
can take in water, expand, and during the dry season it would expunge the water and then would contract.
Right.
So that expansion and contraction would usually cause the buildings to crack severely. So that's why we are saying that when you are going to build a house, you need a geological engineer to go in and do your site investigation. I would say for a simple 2 or 3 bedroom house, if it is going to cost you 300,000 to complete that house, and you are supposed to pay a geological engineer 10 or 20,000 to ensure that your soils and everything is right before that building is put there. To me, I think it makes sense to save your 300,000 investment or your 400,000 investment with that little 15,000 or 20,000 cedis that you can pay. And if we are able to do these things, it will help us. So his problem is that unless those soils are removed from the place, his building is still going to continue to crack.
So then the issue of town and country planning.
Okay.
With iron rods.
No, I'll take that of the McCarthy.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Right.
So, McCarthy is still within the red zone.
Right.
In as much as people are buying land expensively,
That's
doesn't mean
red
that.
zone.
Yeah.
Right.
Zone rouge.
Yeah. In terms of the earthquake-prone zones.
Right.
So, as I said, people can spend so much money to kill themselves. Yeah. So, it's still not so safe because, as I said, 1939, Ghana and Turkey had the same devastating earthquake. And the time that they had the recent one, we had a lot of earth tremors also coming up. So all of these things are signs for us. So there are zones that we have to demarcate that these areas you don't have to really put some structures, or before you put anything there, we have to look at the engineering factor so that.
Can you mention the red zones again?
Okay, so these red zones, Kasua, Yanyano, Botiano, McCarthy Hill, all within this.
Legon, all the way to Hope. It is, and then you come to Axim areas. Those are also part of the red zones. From Axim all the way to Takrady, they are all part of the red zone.
When you say Legon, are you replying that Medina, Denta,
Yes. In fact, like I said, from Legon all the way to Ebri, to how do we call it, Otekmelu areas.
Right.
Then it branches off to Ho. So all those on that line are in the red zone. We are all in the zone.
Wow.
We are all in the red zone.
Mr. Okazi, you have worked with the Civil Aviation Authority. Is the airport tarmac?
Oh, with those kind of buildings,
right?
With these buildings that would house many people,
right?
Usually we do the right thing.
Oh.
So you would ensure that before even these buildings will be put there, the right thing will be done. Because if it is not done and something happens, look, people can take government on, and government will simply not risk it.
But I know the airport, when it rains, the place gets, terminal.
Those are structural design issues.
Design issues. But there are international specifications which
we need to codes. Yeah. Otherwise, nobody's plane would even come there.
Oh.
Even the structure of the tarmac has a certain pavement levels. You just can't do it like that because. It doesn't only concern the Ghanaian aircraft, but also aircraft coming from outside and all that.
Right. So what other comments do you have?
You see, listening to you, I think that it should be a collaboration. Some of the callers were saying the university should go to the civil. I'm not sure that is it, because the university has got this specific role to play into research and that. And it's up to the stakeholders, interested stakeholders, we should collaborate with them and get the information and use it, because they will prepare the raw material, and it's up to the stakeholders, interested stakeholders, to use it. But my this is that, you see, like every area there, you see the range
Yeah.
from Mampong or to like those areas.
Yes, areas.
They served as a water divide.
Yes.
Yes.
Parting. Now that the soil has been removed
Yes.
and buildings are there, I think I don't know, but it looks like it's too dangerous.
In fact, to even add up, from that mountains, we have to create, there's always supposed to be watershed areas where water would have to be stored from the rain before it has to go to the sea. Now these waters have to be stored somewhere in the Abokobi areas to be able to go to the sea. But we have built on all these areas. Example, like our Ramsar site, it has to take all these waters and then just dump them into the sea at its own pace. But we have decided that all these watershed areas that God by its own nature has created for us, we will destroy it. You see people filling in all these watershed to be able to have buildings. And when it rains, with all these divides and all the water coming from wherever it's supposed to come from, where do you expect it to be? Flood will kill us. So you see, we are not doing things right. Yes, when it floods, then we'll go and shout on our bike, and that's where town and country planning must also come in again. If they have done all of these things,
because they are there buying frankly.
Yes, in fact, frankly speaking, they have to design our country for us. So if they were doing things right, we would also not have done things haphazardly.
So this makes it very dangerous in terms of the space density of population. Let's take McCarthy Hill or Kasua for instance. So if there's a major earthquake, we get magnitude 6.5,
And lots of
7.
people die
To be
because of the density. And
density.
if you even look at developed countries, some have been very wise. In their earthquake-prone areas, they don't really put residential buildings there. Rather, they will plan and put malls, playgrounds, and all those things there. Because these are areas that you don't live. You would only come for a few hours and leave. But if you are living there, the number of people who will die compared to the number of people who will come and play that day, the ratio is quite small. So they are quite quick and say, look, all our playgrounds, all our malls, let's just put it here. Because whatever will happen, we still need the land which we need to use anyway. But when you use that land and there's a disaster, you would have saved yourself, and 2 people would die as to 100 if the place were residents.
So let's take Continue for instance.
The point is that, I don't know, now that you have increased knowledge, increased awareness, why are you doing this to ourselves? No, time of old. Like, you see, even when we were in school, our geography teachers were telling us about the watershed, water divide, and all those in the rain. When you do geography on the top of the mountain is a watershed and all. And people, even who had not got that knowledge, demarcated those areas as areas that should not be touched. Because immediately you touch it, you will change the whole ecosystem and all that. Because I remember I had a friend who they were living on the latter area there, and they were using those ranges as hunting. They go there and kill antelopes, and now you go there, you won't find it because of the building. The whole ecosystem has changed, and all the animals had run away. So I like
look at this.
So I like you. Why is this? Why is it that? I think it comes down to enforcement. The Environmental Protection Council, the engineers, like you're saying, you want to go and build, they'll just come and stop work and then. But in other areas, they will do the soil testing and all that they're talking about, all the geological and engineering. This will be done before the building comes on. Then. So I think we are.
You haven't forgotten your geography. Pass through your department.
So I think these days, even the stop work, people write them themselves.
Well, before you leave us, what message do you have for Ghanaians, for government, and of course for institutions that have been taxed by law to, frankly speaking, do these sort of things that we're just talking about, but that have reneged, in doing their work?
My last words, I would say, first of all, you let me think of the individual Ghanaian first,
Okay.
before I even go to the institution.
All right.
Because we've seen over the years that the institutions have failed us as Ghanaians. So you would have to take your own life into your own hands and deal with that first.
Right.
That's why I would advise them that they should take their earthquake preparedness very well in terms of that simple solutions we give them during this whole discussion, that they should take it seriously in terms of the fact that people should run away and be under chairs so that when there's breakages and tables they can be saved. People shouldn't go to the windows, don't run away just going anywhere, but you can still run to open field. Those ones personally we are helping Ghanaians so that they can save themselves first. Now to the institution, like he just said, we do not collaborate.
Okay.
We do not do things together. We all sit wherever we sit and do whatever we want to do.
Independently.
And when we do it independently too, it is on our shelves.
Yeah.
And we are proud of ourselves in our offices that we have done this and is on the shelf. But the question is, what is the citizenry gaining out of this? The citizenry can only gain when we work collaboratively and put our work out there saying that, look, these are the dangers that these things pose for you. And we expect the media houses to also help us propagate these issues to the people out there so they are fully aware that, look, if I am going to put my 500,000 into an investment, it is worth noting that I have to save my investment. You could see our last caller crying, saying that his building is cracking. What should he do? If he had done the right thing from the beginning, he would not have cried. Okay, so that is my last words that I would give to people. We should come together, we should work collaboratively, and we should make our researches known to people. And whichever government institution that is tasked to do whatever they have to do it, and the citizenry must know.
Yes, Dr. Nunoo.
Thank you so much, our host. I think I will just add a bit to what my senior colleague just said. Individually, if you want to buy land, secure property, you just have to check certain fundamentals yourself. And as he indicated, if the property is going to cost you 300,000 cedis, and you are going to spend 10,000 or even 20,000 to do what is right, to check if the area is good for that property, you need to do it. So some way, somehow, individuals should also have that sense of responsibility, that where I stay and where I develop my property is very, very important, and I have to adhere to codes. So that is a little that I'm able to add to what my colleague said. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nunoo, and then Dr. Amponsah.